Seuraavaksi meillä on mielenkiintoinen, we have an international guest, or Finnish international guest, so to say. Insights from the world, from Mexico and from Finland. Paula Bello was the first service designer in Kone, nowadays an entrepreneur, and she will talk about too many questions, too little time, how we can help startups with service design principles and so forth. So welcome, Paula.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So I will be making this presentation a bit with a few hats today, because it will be a bit more of a story of my experience in the last couple of years. Lately, I have become, after being the first service design manager at Kone, a huge corporation, I left to become an entrepreneur, and then I have been advising 5 startups in the last year. And I'm passionate about startups because I really respect them. They have the right attitude, they have the passion, and they have the agility to really make a difference. In that set, that's how service design can really help them. So it's a short presentation today, and I'm going to draw from the experience of these 5 startups, but I will focus on a case of Creagent. We have here Päivi Rosti. She's the CEO of one of the companies that I have been advising, and they have been very dynamic in creating a great product. My story with them is that I started actually as one of the first customers from the Kone perspective, looking desperately for great design talent. Since the presentation is very short, you have found in your seats that inside has pretty much a summary of what I'm going to be talking about. And the objective of this is that if you, as a startup, have any of these questions, service design can certainly help you. So just out of curiosity, how many startups do we have here today? If you could raise your hand. Okay, not too many. I guess many of you are on the other side of providing services for them. So now I'm a design consultant and a business partner at Livework. Livework is one of the first service design agencies in the world, if not the first. It's based in London, in Oslo, Rotterdam, Sao Paulo, and now we're having a pop-up in Helsinki. And basically what we do is making sense. We are of course, starting from the base of the customer's story, as pretty much all design do. What can we do to provide a need, solve a need from the customer side? But what we are actually focusing a lot is the business impact and the organizational capabilities. It's important, of course, to have something that is desirable for the customer or for the end user. But at the same time, it has to be something that is viable and that is feasible. We need to make something that has a difference from the business perspective. At the end of the day, there has to be a business case for pretty much all efforts that we do in the commercial sector. But then also we have to consider the organization's capabilities. We need to see where we are, what we can do, and then focus on that. So a little bit about Creagent. Creagent is a broker for design. So what they do is match business needs and design talent. In maybe easier words, hopefully it's a Tinder for designers and companies, finding the real match between both sides. And when I first met Päivi, I was actually in the process of recruiting the first service designers and having recruiting designers for a while, and it was a nightmare process. And when she told me what she was doing, I was like, yes, thank you. There is real need for that. In big corporations, it's a bit of a nightmare process to be able to identify design talent and bring it in, because pretty much the systems of HR usually don't support that. It's not the same to select talent from design as selecting some other professions that maybe are more straightforward. You need to understand the person. You need to understand the examples of their work, their personality, so many more things. It's much more complex, I felt, to find a good designer than to find another professional, and the existing systems do not support that. So that's how we started talking. As one of the first customers, we were checking what it's that we needed. So we were a bit as a guinea pig. And after that, I turned a bit of an advisor, which is a current role that I have. So the process of Gradient, it's very clear story. This is what you need to do. This is a clear need that it really reflected me and my colleagues from KONE. We need design talent, we need to find it, but it's not that easy. How are we going to make the process of pre-selection when perhaps you have 200 designers applying for one post? It is very straightforward in a sense, and the big need was clear. But what we found out in the process is that you need to have a more granular understanding of the needs, because this is too big of a problem. So what we have been working in is to break down the situation so it's handleable. Where are the pain points of the persons having to recruit, and where are the pain points of the persons that are applying? This meaning that in the case of Gradient, there's actually the customers, the pay, the companies looking for the talent. But then also a first customer is the designers. If you don't have a very good pool of variety of approaches, what are you going to offer to the customer? And besides that, you also have earlier customers, which are the investors. So it was needed to break down more the need into smaller needs and see where to focus. You can create a very complete service, but maybe it's not viable to actually develop it in action. As a small company with small resources, you need to see where should I focus? What will make the minimum viable service that I can offer? In the case of Gradient, it was very clear that there were, first of all, not having enough market in Finland, so they had to be global from the start. In their case, they focus in China. They're focusing in China. Päivi is traveling there tomorrow because there's a clear need from Finnish companies to find talent as well in China. But this brings bigger demands, because besides having finding the needs is very different, the needs and the processes between Finland and China. So it's quite many things to consider. In that sense, what Päivi has felt was a bit of a chaos. And what service design has been helping her to do is to put a bit of order in it. Because at the end of the day, service design is a profession to help you make sense of what you're doing, to help you map what are the needs, to be able to visualize them, to put them in order, and to prioritize where you're going to focus. So that's exactly what we have been doing. And just to make it a bit more tangible, some of the needs that have been identified are, for instance, at 3 levels. As a customer, I take my experience from KONE, from being on that side of that. What I wanted, and I told her really clearly, I want a system without a password that in 3 minutes I can have a very good understanding of a designer's capability. I hate passwords, we all do. It's a simple little need, but that will make a big difference for us. I need to reduce the time I spent on this. With the traditional HR methods, it would take me about 20 to 30 minutes per candidate. And considering having 200 candidates, it's not feasible to really have a good understanding of them. So it has to be in one site, being able to see what the designer is about, because this will improve the chance for making a good selection. As a user, thinking myself of a designer, how am I going to promote myself? I need to be able to show also in one view, in a language that is easy for me to communicate, to say who I am, the type of work I do, and what are my aspirations. If something that I looked at KONE was the attitude of designers, because quite often we are dealing with new fields that you don't even know what you have to do. So the most important thing is to have a must-win attitude. And that has to come across through a profile of the designer. It cannot be only through a CV. You cannot read from that. So there has to be a stronger message coming across. And then there were also the aspects of Grajen as a company. They are starting, they have few resources, they have the really excellent attitude, but they have to be smart on how to use those resources. They also need to automatize the process because they cannot go manually to check every candidate and make the matchmaking. We need to find some psychological and more complex system of how to create the matching. And of course, they have to attract clients and designers. If you have clients, but you don't have the main resources, which are the designers, this doesn't make sense at all. And finally, be global. Finnish market is just simply too small, and this is something that I have seen in all the startups. So this is a very simplified process of how the service design can help startups. So if you see inside this brochure, there is two main questions that have come across pretty much from every startup I have worked with. First, bring some order into the chaos, and secondly, make your message simple and human. So starting from a clear aim, what is your biggest challenge as a startup? Then here are some questions that I have heard once and several times coming across. The first one, what is my story about? What is my service? Am I able to tell it in 2 minutes? Where should I focus? I have so many things to do. I don't know where to start from. And what resources do I really need? Quite often, we don't know when we are inside that, where should we put our little money and who's really needed to be part of it. Of the 5 startups I work with, 3 of them were not designer-driven, but at the end of the first test of asking this or trying to respond to these questions, they put service design as one of the main resources needed. When you have your clear questions, you just need to think a bit about it. What am I telling in my 2 minutes, in my elevator speech? What am I saying? Where do I get stuck? This is one of the most important things, and you need to tell a story. I remember one of the most successful startup pitch I have been. It was one guy from the Netherlands that had a product that is actually a button that if you push, it connects you to a website. And he started explaining it very technical, and the moment that he got the attention of the people, he made a story out of it. He showed a picture of his grandmother in India with 10 photos of her grandchildren, each with one button that she pushed. I want to talk to this grandson. She pushed and connected to Skype to contact them. That made a story that made people feel, that made them remember. So it is absolutely key that you're able to reach this. After that, what are the essentials to make my service work? You can have 1,000 features, but you need to focus on what really brings value to the customer. And then, based on that, what are my priorities? What resources I need to be able to deliver those few things that I want to do at this level? And then finally, there's a checklist of things to do. And service design can certainly help you in all of these. For instance, describe the service in 3 words. You will start with 100 words, but you have to start to prioritize and separate them and make the personal story. Don't sell a button, sell a story of your grandmother connecting to their grandsons. Then related to where should I focus, make the steps that you need to do to deliver, to engage firstly the customer and deliver the service. It can be very long, and it's okay. Map it as detailed as you can, but then select the 3 key steps that are absolutely necessary to be able to deliver that service. Forget the rest, get those 3 downs, and then the rest of them, put them in a map that you will bring them later on. And finally, how do I use my time? Who do I really need? List your activities in a normal week. I know these are very basic questions, but make a huge difference. One of the startups I work with had spent about 20% of their time packing products to send to Japan. So it is important that you know what you can do and what can be delegated to others. And then list the activities of the very key things you have to focus, so put people on it. The second question, you can look at the brochure, is quite straightforward, so no need to explain. And I think this, I'm done. There is Nuria Solsana, who is the business developer in Livework. So since I'm out of the picture, in a few weeks, Nuria can help you if you have any further questions about this. Thank you so much.
Cool, thanks. I think even though you spoke about startups, I think that this is something to take away to our normal organizations and think our daily activities and daily plans whenever we are doing something new services or whatsoever, no matter what kind of a service it is, because too often we face the fact that we don't really bring value to the customer or think the value that we should be bringing to the customer, even though when it's not the startup. Thanks.